beautiful people. Welcome, everyone, to today's presentation. We're here to shed light on the crucial topic of contractor versus employee and unravel work status. We'll discuss why understanding work status is not just important, but essential in the realm of tax compliance. The classification of workers as contractors or employees has far reaching implications. Properly classifying workers is a cornerstone of tax compliance and financial responsibility. Our primary focus today is to help you grasp the nuances of work status. We will emphasize how a clear understanding of work status can be the key to navigating the complexities of tax compliance. With that said, let's dive into this critical subject matter. I'll start by defining work status and its significance in our first section. Feel free to ask questions at the end of the presentation. We're here to ensure that you leave with a solid understanding of this topic. So let's take a closer look at what we're going to cover. Defining work status. We'll start by laying the foundation and clarifying what work status means in the context of tax compliance. Contractor versus employees. In this section, we'll delve into the core distinctions between being classified as a contractor or an employee. These differences have substantial implications for both individuals and organizations. Tax implications play a significant role in our financial lives. We'll explore how your work status affects your tax obligations, including income tax, self-employment tax, and access to various benefits. Compliance considerations. You want to stay on the right side of the law, so we'll highlight the compliance factors related to work status classification and why misclassification can lead to legal and financial consequences. I'll also throw out some case studies. Real world examples can often make complex concepts more relatable. So I'll present some case studies that illustrate how correct or incorrect work status classification impacts individuals and businesses. We'll share some practical tips and best practices for both employers and workers to ensure proper work status classification and tax compliance. These insights can help you to navigate this terrain successfully. Your understanding is my priority. We'll conclude our presentation with the Q&A session, providing you with the opportunity to ask questions and seek clarification on any aspects of today's discussion. With this agenda, we aim to equip you with the knowledge and insight necessary to make informed decisions and navigate the complexities of work status and tax compliance effectively. So let's start with our first topic. So let's jump into the cornerstone of the discussion today, work status. Work status refers to the classification of individuals or entities as either contractors or employees based on their relationship with the business. It essentially answers the question, what is your role in the professional relationship? Why is proper classification critical for tax compliance? So, correctly determining whether you are a contractor or an employee is of the utmost importance. The classification sets the stage for how you are taxed, what benefits you're entitled to, and the legal obligation you and your employer must adhere to. Understanding and correctly applying this classification is fundamental to ensuring tax compliance. Work status is the label that defines your role in a professional relationship, whether you're an independent contractor or an employee. Accurate classification is not just a matter of semantics, it's key in a factor of tax compliance and has significant implications for your financial situation. Now, let's explore these classifications further and understand the key differences between being a contractor and an employee. All right, so in this segment, I'll dissect the fundamental distinctions between being classified as a contractor or an employee. So let's just jump right into it. Contractors operate independently and are often self-employed. They have a degree of autonomy in how they carry out their work, which means that they're not being micromanaged. They control their own schedule and locations. They have the flexibility to set their own working hours and choose where they work and whether it's from home or another location. Contractors are responsible for managing their own taxes, including self-employment taxes, and they typically don't have taxes withheld by the employer or business. Contractors are commonly engaged for specific tasks or projects with a defined scope and duration. So it's not something that's generally ongoing all the time. On the other end, employees work under the direct supervision and control of their employers. They are subject to the employer's guidance and oversight. Employees typically follow a fixed work schedule and location specified that by their employer. They may be required to work on site. So just because you're virtual does not mean that you're not an employee. Employers are responsible for withholding income taxes and other payroll taxes from an employee's wages, simplifying the tax process for the employee. Long-term or ongoing work relationships. Employees often have an indefinite or long-term work relationship with their employer, providing stability in terms of income and job security. So these are some key differences. For example, you have to go through a firing process for an employee. Generally, there may be some type of review process during the onboarding. Sometimes there's that 45-day period, there's that 90-day period. That's an employee situation. As where with a contractor, it can cease to exist based on what the contract is presented. So you can actually provide the business with a contract that outlines what the terms of engagement are, or you can be presented with a contract from the business about the terms of engagement that outlines how long this assignment is going to last, what that type of compensation is, and when this assignment is ending, or what happens if you guys want it to end before it's supposed to be over. Right. So those are the key differences in work arrangements between contractors and employees. Employees influence the tax obligations, the benefits, and the nature of the working relationship. And understanding which category that you fall into is essential for proper tax compliance. So now let's talk about those tax implications that arise from the classification of workers or contractors as employees. Contractors are responsible for paying self-employment taxes, which include Social Security and Medicare taxes. The taxes are typically higher than what employees pay because contractors cover both employer and employee portions. But they can deduct their business expenses. Contractors have the advantage of deducting legitimate business expenses from their taxable income, and this can help to overall reduce their tax liability. One of the highest benefits is that contractors generally do not have to access the employer provided benefits such as healthcare. Well, excuse me, limited or no access. My apologies. Limited or no access to employer benefits. Contractors generally do not have access to employer provided benefits such as healthcare, retirement plans, and paid leave. They're responsible for securing and providing their own benefits. Employees benefit from having income taxes withheld by their employer, which spreads their tax liability throughout the year. This often results in a more predictable and manageable tax situation. So there's generally FICA, we all know who that is, Social Security and Medicare tax. So the employee is responsible for paying their federal taxes on their own, but there is a split that the employer splits with Medicare and Social Security, that with as a contractor, you would have to pay that on your own. You're responsible for both portions of that, right? So eligible for employer benefits. Employees are typically eligible for a range of benefits provided by their employer, including healthcare coverage, retirement plans, 401ks, and paid time off. These benefits enhance financial security and well-being. The tax implications of work status classification are substantial. Contractors face higher self-employment taxes, but can offset them with business expenses. Employees have income taxes withheld for easier tax management and enjoy access to various employer benefits. Um, but they do not have the ability of writing off those any expenses that are incurred, that are not reimbursable from their employer, right? As tax professionals, we know that the Tax and Jobs Act restricted employees reimbursables to be claimed on taxes quite a while back. Alrighty, so compliance considerations. This segment focuses on the critical aspect of compliance considerations. Correct classification is crucial for tax compliance. Accurate work status classification is not just important, it's absolutely critical when it comes to tax compliance. Properly identifying whether an individual is a contractor or employee lays the foundation for fulfilling tax obligations correctly. Misclassifying workers can have severe repercussions, both legally and financially, for both employers and workers. Employers who misclassify workers may face legal penalties, fines, and back taxes, and not just from the IRS. You'll also need to deal with the labor board. It can also lead to damaging your reputation. In the age of online employer ranking, it's important that you take your employer scorecard seriously, especially if you're a financial professional. Workers who are misclassified may miss out on employee benefits and protections they are entitled to, such as minimum wage, overtime, vacation pay, as well as workers' compensation, sick pay, and any optional cafeteria plans or benefits, but most importantly, unemployment insurance. And right, if for some reason that assignment ends, your employment terminates. If you are classified as a contractor and not an employee, then you have no claim of recompense for unemployment insurance. So the ramifications of misclassification extend beyond mere administrative errors. They can result in significant legal and financial consequences. So it's in the best interest of both the employer, business, and the worker to ensure the correct classification to remain compliant with tax and labor laws. Alrighty. It's water time. Now let's go over some real life scenarios that highlight the tangible impact of both accurate and inaccurate work status classifications on tax compliance. So in example one, accurate classification, the independent contractor John, a highly skilled software developer, works in an independent contractor for a tech company. His work status is correctly classified as a contractor, and he diligently pays his self-employment taxes quarterly, right? Because if you're not paying them quarterly, even if you don't know it, you're being penalized. John enjoys the flexibility of setting his own hours and location and is eligible for various business expense deductions. Accurate classification allows the tech company to avoid payroll taxes and benefit expenses associated with employees. There is a contract that John extended to the tech company and they signed on. All right. So, example number two is an inaccurate classification. The misclassified employee, Sarah, works full time for a ride sharing company. She's classified as an independent contractor. The company dictates her schedule and provides strict guidelines for her work. Sarah should be classified as an employee, but due to misclassification, she is responsible for her own taxes. She doesn't receive employee benefits, and the ride sharing company, in turn, faces potential legal consequences for failing to withhold taxes and provide those benefits. All right. So, the impact on a business, right? Let's talk about example number three. A small construction company misclassifies several workers as contractors to reduce labor costs. Now, this is more common than you think, especially in the financial industry. You'll find a lot of insurance companies, a lot of tax companies, they will call you a contractor, but you're required to come into the office. You're required to open up the store. You know what I mean? There are certain ways for you to have tax pros that are independent contractors, but they can't be opening up for you every morning at 7 o'clock. That's not how this works, right? This misclassification leads to an IRS audit and a labor board claim, revealing unpaid payroll taxes and fines. The company is required to pay back taxes, penalties, and interest, as well as lost wages, compensations, and fines directly from the labor board. The financial strain of these consequences can jeopardize the business's stability. So if they don't have that money, and those fines are ridiculous. When we get into Q&A, I can tell you guys about when I had my janitorial service, how I had to go up against the labor board and how that worked out for us. All right. So the financial strain of these consequences can table your business. These case studies exemplify real world implications of accurate and inaccurate work status classification. Proper classification can lead to tax compliance, financial benefits, and legal security. Conversely, misclassification can result in legal disputes, financial penalties, and potential harm to both individuals and businesses. These examples underscore the importance of correctly classifying work status for the well-being of all parties involved. All right, let's talk about some best practices. Alrighty. Employers should conduct a thorough evaluation of their workforce to ensure that each worker is correctly classified as a contractor or an employee. This should align with the nature of their work and their level of control. It's also crucial to have well-drafted employment contracts that clearly outline the working relationship, including roles and responsibilities, payment terms, and the nature of the work. These contracts should align directly with the worker's classification. So just because you call them an independent contractor and they sign an independent contractor agreement does not make them an independent contractor if you maintain too much control over their work product and their delivery. Okay. Labor and tax laws are subject to change. Businesses must stay up to date with regulations to ensure that they are in compliance and avoid legal issues. On the flip side, workers should take the initiative to understand their own work status classifications and associated tax obligations. This knowledge empowers them to manage their finances effectively. Maintaining detailed financial records, including income, expenses, and tax-related documents, is essential for proper tax compliance. These records can also help workers maximize their deductions and justify their work status. So if you feel like you've been classified as an independent contractor and you truly are a worker, then you should start to document that misclassification and bring it up to your employer. If they don't release the reins of control, then you actually have a viable case. You're not a contractor, you are an employee, and you need to change that classification. If there's any uncertainty about the work status or tax-related matters, one must first ask themselves, how much control do you assess over the work product and its delivery? When in doubt, seeking advice from an attorney is a prudent step. Professional guidance can make businesses help more informed decisions. Following these best practices is crucial for both employers, businesses, and workers to maintain a compliant and harmonious working relationship. Nobody wants to be mad and get hit with a labor suit after, you end a working relationship. No business wants to be caught out there, liable for tens of thousands of dollars in fees and fines. So it's always best to just protect yourself up front. Employers should focus on accurate classification, clear contracts, and legal compliance. Workers should educate themselves about their status, maintain financial records, and seek professional guidance when needed. By adhering to these best practices, employers and workers can minimize the risk of misclassification and navigate the complexities of tax compliance more effectively. Alrighty, so I'm going to wrap up and then I'm going to open this up for Q&A for you guys. But it's really key for me to reiterate these takeaways. Understanding the fundamental differences between contractors and employees is not just important, it's pivotal for tax compliance. Properly classifying workers is the foundation upon which accurate tax obligations and benefits are built. Whether you're an employer or a worker, ensuring that you classify and treat workers correctly is essential. Misclassification can lead to significant legal and financial consequences for both parties. Work status classification plays a pivotal role in the realm of tax compliance. By correctly classifying and treating your workers as employees and treating your contractors as contractors, you can avoid legal and financial issues, protect your rights, and maintain a harmonious working relationship. So thank you so much for joining. I hope this presentation provided you with valuable insight into the world of work status and its impact and how it can impact us as financial professionals. I'm going to go ahead and open this up for Q&A, and then we're going to get out of here because I'm pretty sure you guys are tired. I really appreciate you guys for giving me all the grace yesterday because I was down and out real bad. All right, so Q&A. I'm going to read off a couple of questions, give you guys some answers, and then give you guys the opportunity to chime in. Let's get started.